responsible for women and gender equality. That's Pam Parsons. Minister Parsons, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty, and it's certainly great to be on your show, and certainly thanks for making the time to talk about the very important Purple Ribbon campaign. I think you and I have this chat annually, and I think we both agree that it's a chat that we need to have, and it's a conversation that we need to have pretty much every day until, we do what we can to reduce and ultimately eliminate gender-based violence. So as you know, the Purple Ribbon flag-raising proclamation signing event, it'll mark the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, which is known, of course, as the Purple Ribbon Campaign. This is an international campaign, and it actually started back in 1991, and ultimately to call out and speak up against gender-based violence, and, of course, to renew our commitment as a government to ending violence against women, girls, and the 2S LGBTQI plus individuals. So I just want to extend the invitation for tomorrow. It certainly is open to the public. It begins at 10:30 a.m., and, of course, it's happening at the Confederation Building, East Block. So we're opening this to the public. I'm going to be joined by some advocates, well-known advocates in our area, Debbie Hibbs, of course, Lisa Lake, and Gemma Hickey, who will also share their stories of lived experiences. And also attendees, we're encouraging them to bring brightly colored flowers in memory of those who have lost their lives or who have been impacted by gender-based violence.
Yeah, these 16 days of activism began all the way back in 1991, and one of the key focus areas for much of the country, of course, is remembering the 14 women who died in Montreal on December the 6th of 1989. So what policies and programs are in place to try to deal with the prevalence of domestic violence against women and young girls? Because we see the court dockets, it's happened far too frequently in this province. So give us some specifics of what we're trying to attempt to do to curb the amount of DVs we see.
Well, many initiatives have taken place. I'll just jog our memory back a few years. Actually, there was a 4-year plan with 64 actions, and that was called Working Together for Violence-Free Communities. 96% of those actions were completed and 4% are ongoing. And, of course, since I've been in MHA, I've been in the House Assembly, and I'm happy to say that we've passed a lot of great legislation to do that, to work against gender-based violence, prevention, awareness. Something recently that we've done I'm really proud of, and this, of course, is in alignment with the Missing Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, and that was the establishment of an Indigenous Women's Reconciliation Council to ultimately direct a range of policies that are aimed at implementing the calls for justice by the National Inquiry into the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And this is historic, Patty. I also attended an FPT, Federal Provincial Territorial meeting this past summer, where I met with colleagues across the country. And we're actually the first in Newfoundland and Labrador to have such a council in place where Indigenous women from our province that compose the steering committee are working with government officials on this committee to ultimately to do what we can to implement the best policy and to advise of the best policy. Some other things that we've done and implemented improvements to occupational health and safety regulations. And those include provisions to address workplace harassment and worker violence. Another important one is the updated Family Violence Protection Act. And Patty, that broadens the definition of violence, which is very important, and expanding this definition to include psychological, emotional, and financial harm conveyed, the importance of recognizing these forms of violence. Another one is the bail supervision and electronic monitoring program to help lower levels of, reacting those crimes again and improve safety for women. So interpersonal violence disclosure, as you know, Clare's Law was just, we had passed that some years ago. And as we know now, that's going to be implemented as well. The Protection of Images Act, Intimate Images Act. So those are just a number of changes that we're doing. Changes to Residential Tenancies Act as well to allow for early termination of a rental agreement in the cases for domestic violence. So if someone is experiencing domestic violence, they don't have to worry about that lease, that the agreement that they have with their landlord, so that can be forgiven, so they can escape this. And also another one that I'll mention is the changes to the Labor Standards Act, allowing victims of family violence to take a total of 10 days of leave if they're experiencing such violence. So lots of ongoing initiatives. I want to throw a bouquet to stakeholders in our communities as well across Newfoundland and Labrador. As we know, they are the experts on the front lines that help the people who need these services the most. And as Minister responsible for women and gender equality, I'm really proud and happy to do my part to help provide them the resources they need to do this very important work.
We appreciate the time this morning, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
Take care. Bye-bye. As Pam Parsons, the the Liberal member, for Harbour Grace, Portagrave, and the Minister responsible for women and gender equality.